There we go. Chris, how are you?
Sambo, good, my friend. Thank you for having me.
No worries. And welcome everyone to Apollo Hyper's founder community. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today to catch up with myself and Chris, and hopefully we can give you some little nuggets of gold to help you on your journey. We know that some of you have an idea and you're not sure what to do next. Some of you have taken that leap and are in the process, and some of you may be even in the market, which is great. So very inspired to sit here today with Chris and learn about his journey. Just a bit of housekeeping. You'll see on the in the comments section on the right. We want this to be interactive, so hopefully you can get a piece of paper and a pen nearby, or get a notepad out on your laptop, as Chris will ask you to take some action throughout this webinar. And as well, feel free to comment. We're seeing this live happening as well to be able to interact. So thank you everyone for joining. I'd like to introduce Chris from One Another. Just to give you a quick backstory, Chris and I got in contact back in 2020, so 4 years ago during the peak of COVID actually. And I was lucky enough to meet Chris, who had this idea and concept for his business, which he'll introduce. Chris, welcome, and thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sambo. Everyone, it's a pleasure. Ideally, I'm just sharing stories and insights from my personal journey. There is certainly no right or wrong answer, and just hopefully you guys, take some tips and tricks or just some thought-provoking ways to think about, any advice that you can take to your own journey. So feel free to leave in comments and challenge us and dig deeper into any of the questions or thoughts. I'm more than happy to share as much as I possibly can. I'm very open. So excited to be here, and let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So just start us off before we kind of go back to your journey. Tell us a little bit about One Another and the mission you're on.
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder at One Another, and our entire purpose is to inspire human connection. We are a community and working together with brands, corporations, and charities to create in real life community events to essentially make it easy for people to give back and volunteer. Unfortunately, whilst we are on a digital webinar, a lot of humanity is relying too much on technology, and we are not living in the present moment. So we are trying to use technology for good and bring everyone back into real life events.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. So part of today, we want to go through the mindset, the understanding, and I guess how you did it and how you continue to do it, of transitioning and quitting your job, that 9 to 5, going on to raise funding and starting your own business. So I want to take it back to kind of, the beginning, let's just say 2020, when you had this concept and this idea of what you wanted to create. How did you go about of actually thinking, cool, I'm actually going to commit to doing something? And what was that feeling like in order to do so?
Yeah, it was certainly a thrilling feeling. And the first step is certainly the hardest in any element or big decision in your life. That initial decision and that initial step is definitely the most difficult, which is why I personally loved the Hyper program, because they are, a relatively significant investment, but that transfer of money is a pretty significant first step in the right direction. So I had, I was working on my idea, which was around just making volunteering easy for probably about a year, seeking advice, prototyping, just general things on my own. And then one of my friends introduced me to you, Sambo, who ran me through the Hyper program and the accelerator and the benefits of it, and then outlining that initial cash was certainly, I think, the most impactful first step in the journey, because, then it was go time. And it's important to note, I was still working my 9 to 5 when I started the Hyper program as well.
So thanks, Chris. I guess, it's about actually making that first proper step, as you mentioned, the hardest. Behind that step, how did you know, I guess, that this is the mission that you wanted to actually begin?
Yeah. And that's such an important question, because I think one of the biggest challenges in today's world is this busyness, or just keeping up with the Joneses and chasing more money, bigger houses, bigger cars. And we haven't had the time to actually sit, pause, and reflect what you actually personally want in life. What brings me, Chris Ingate, happiness? What is my Chris Ingate definition of success? And then creating a life around that. So one of the important things that I want to take home, for you guys listening today, is ask yourself that. There's no point taking this first step into creating a company if it's a step in the wrong direction. Pretty simply. So I would encourage everyone listening to this call, next time you are going for a walk, next time you are at the beach looking at a sunrise or a sunset, or standing in line at a coffee store, or being on public transport, don't pull out your phone. Don't read your book, although reading is very important. But essentially what I'm getting at is have alone time with your own thoughts, so you can work out, who am I? What brings me happiness? What brings me joy? What are my strengths? What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? How am I utilizing my weekends? Then, only then, when you start asking yourself those questions, I would then encourage you to write them down. You can then start to create a map of what my ideal life for Chris Ingate looks like. And then you can start taking the biggest first step into achieving that life.
Fantastic, Chris. And I think that's, really wise words. The understanding behind having this, great idea in this business you want to run, fundamentally understanding what is that why. Now, first and foremost, it's often the problem that you're solving and that you're incredibly passionate about. And then you want to wake up every day and you want to go through setbacks in order to know the wins to solve that problem. But also understanding what's the other purpose and what's the other why. Is it to potentially provide a greater life for my family and support? Maybe that could be time, because it's going to allow me to start my own business and have more time, whatever that looks like. So that's really good advice. And if you've got any kind of other tips in order to do that, Chris, I think, we've spoken about a bit of an exercise in one sentence that you've done before. And if you'd like to share that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I call it essentially the one sentence business plan. How many business plans do you see, or even pitch decks for that matter, that are 15 slides, or business plans, 40, 50, 60 slides? A big, great exercise that Sambo helped me do early in my stage is the one sentence plan. So what that is, essentially, in your mind, or in a Word document, the business vision, purpose, values, goals, problem, solution, everything that essentially investors and customers are going to ask, answer it in one sentence only. And it's not and this and but this. I know a lot of people can easily turn one sentence into a long paragraph, but the point is, if you succinctly know what your business, or what your purpose, and what your plan is, that way it's much easier to remember, well, not even remember, but it's much easier to tell and inspire investors, customers, board members to jump on board. For example, through one another, our purpose is to inspire human connection. Our vision is to increase global happiness. Our mission is for no intentions to help others to ever go unmet. The platform connects people who want to help with other people or charities in need of help. My personal purpose is to spread positivity. The more succinct, and it's almost like practice, the more succinct, sort of like mantras for anyone who does yoga or meditation, you almost tricked the mind into living your purpose, your business, and things like that. So write down if anyone's writing down the one sentence business plan, that's a very first good step as well.
Yeah, it's a great concept to really help articulate, as you mentioned, that it might sound like something that you're doing for yourself, but at the end of the day, you're going to be going and actually communicating that to an investor, to a partner, to a potential user, maybe, you know, in your branding and marketing. So the more clearly that you can define that in one sentence is going to allow you to articulate that. So, Chris, in saying that, you know, you went through our Accelerate process. We were able to define and create a really strong prototype, pitch deck, materials. How did you go about then taking that to go raise funding? And what's the type of like tips and tricks that really help to do that further to what you've already explained so far?
Yeah. You know, it's a tricky one because raising funds is ultimately sales. I personally have a background in sales, so I'm well aware that sales is simply just filling up your pipeline, your top of funnel pipeline, with as many relevant potential customers or buyers, and nurturing them with added value throughout that pipeline until they ultimately either become an investor or, potentially just as important, say no. You know, you want to get to the answer, whether that is yes or no, as quickly as possible. I hear so many stories from friends and people in similar situations where they spend 6 months nurturing an investor, and then they finally ask, you know, at the end of 6 months, hey, would you invest in us? And they go, oh, no, we don't invest in tech. It's like, well, you know, should have asked that question a lot earlier. And I'm not saying that 6 months of that person's advice and nurturing wasn't useful, but at least you now know you're not putting all of your eggs in that one basket. So putting that all into layman's terms, there's sort of two approaches that you can go, in my opinion, towards raising investment. That is having your high target list. So write out your 10 high net worth, very high specific investors, again, using one sentence, why they are your top of 10, why they would be the most ideal investor, and essentially target those 10. That relationship looks like trying to build a relationship over 6, 12, 24 months. That's adding value to them. That's going to their podcast. That's going to their events. That's trying to know them by first name basis. That's more just essentially dating them. So you have 12 or 10 partners with them, and that is exchanging of value and taking them along the journey for ultimately they at some point feel inspired about your mission and will invest in you. The second approach is more of a traditional sort of sales approach. There are so many tools to use to put together more of a, you know, secondary ideal list, Apollo, LinkedIn, your own network, and ultimately you are using them for feedback on your idea. So I think a lot of people have heard that saying, you know, you ask for investment, you get advice. You ask for advice, you get investment. So with, let's say, that extra 200, 300, 500 people in this sort of secondary tier, maybe don't call them secondary as well. But this is more trying to get as much feedback on your value proposition and your proposal as better, because every conversation, your pitch deck, your communication will get better, which in turn will obviously help you get closer. So it's a combination of relationship building and just hardcore sales, emails, text messages, chasing up, LinkedIn emails to get that advice call. So hopefully that sheds a bit of light in the two approaches that I took.
Yeah, no, I like that, Chris. And I think it also, you know, in terms of those conversations, you know, we speak a lot around investment mandate that matches the purpose of the problem you're trying to solve in the startup. So what I mean by that is you'll have investors and they all have a certain industry or a certain field that they like to invest in. So it might be SaaS or it might be sustainability focused. So then, you know, we want to marry a SaaS platform up with an investor in that regard. So I guess for you, in terms of people within network that you've met, etc., understanding the why of what you're solving, I could imagine you're trying to find investors that also share that why, so that there's a shared purpose in what you're trying to get them to invest into, not only your platform and the problem you're solving, but also, actually, you know, the industry to increase volunteering rates as well.
And that's an important point. You know, a lot of people out there say, and it is very important to send monthly updates with, you know, number of customers or number of meetings had or, you know, metrics. Investors invest in people. And how do they know the person, it's through storytelling, it's through authenticity, it's through vulnerability, and for one, most importantly, asking for help. Early stage founders are not the experts, unless you are very in a specific niche field. For a lot of us potentially on this call, me in particular, this is my first crack at running a company. It is okay to say you don't know the answers to something. It is okay when asked by an investor, a complex question, and be like, look, I honestly haven't thought about that. They are testing you just as much as you are testing them. And you saying, I haven't thought about that. I need help with that. Would you be open to please help me? I guarantee you'll create a stronger relationship with that potential person.
Yeah, that's really good insight. I couldn't agree more. And, not only are they investing in the business, but most importantly, they're investing into the founder. Can we see that this particular person is going to be able to lead people, solve problems, get up when things might be tricky, and really stand up? So it's a really powerful point. Just a side story, there's a VC fund that I know that when they might potentially look to investing in a founder, they'll take them out for a dinner and a few drinks and see what they might be like on a night out. So just to get the full picture of what they're like, which is pretty interesting. A really good question has come through from Lewis, Chris here, really asking around, how did you approach discussing the topic of raising capital with that friends and family and personal network, and then, the topic of money and splitting it? What was kind of your approach, and how did that go?
Yeah, Lewis, it's a great question, and coming at it sort of potentially twofold. So I had I'm the youngest of three older brothers, and they all invested in me. And ultimately that was more of personally than a favor more than anything. I have found throughout sort of my 2-year current journey at the moment that it is much easier to inspire randoms or other people outside of your friends and family network than it is your own close friends and family network, which to me was a huge revelation, because, friends are meant to be there to support you. But simple things like, can you please do an app store review, or introduce me to that contact at your company, do the warm email intro, just all little things that you think your friends and family would do. A lot fell on deaf ears. There's a lot for me to unpack that personally. So where I'm getting at is, could you potentially avoid raising money from friends and family? We always have heard that, money and blood never mixes. Going into business with family, ultimately it was not much of an investment from my 3 older brothers, and they're not going to, their lives won't be ruined. And I guess that's another important point. I made it very clear with my friends and family, please do not invest anything you can't live without. Similar to gambling, I guess, because it is risky, So I guess if you are approaching that topic, Lewis, to answer your question, is be very upfront, be very clear. It's like, you are betting on me. It is a risk. Please only invest if you have the money to lose, and obviously do that in a nice way and not coming across as like your business is going to lose. Obviously find that way you communicate it. But I think just upfront honesty with your friends and family is the best approach.
For sure. And it's, it is a bit of a balance too, because it's, as you mentioned, the upside obviously of it paying off is the fact that they will, potentially get, maybe a lifetime amount of money, or a really good return for that as well, which is important. Yeah, great question, Lewis. Appreciate that. So you going, Chris?
We got Scott's question here. Lots of friends and family want to invest in my app, but not comfortable. Yeah. He's not comfortable in doing so because in case it doesn't make money. And my experience again with that, taking that first step, shit got real when I raised that family and friends money. So that was probably the second step. I guess the first step, the hardest step, was quitting my 9-to-5, which we can go back and touch upon. But yes, the second step of raising 100 grand from my friends and family, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not spending my money anymore. I'm spending theirs. So potentially that's a very good thing, because it keeps you very accountable, and it keeps you, spending the money the correct way. But yeah, if you're personally not comfortable with spending your friends and family's money, a lot of people aren't, that's something to think about.
Yeah. Tanya, who's one of our wonderful hyper founders, has just written, strangers are always happy to help you grow. So kind of back to your point there, Chris, I think it's really important to have an optimistic mind when you're building something, to be able to go out there and tell people. I know some people might feel, oh, they might steal my idea. What's your opinion, Chris, on going out there and talking to people about your idea, getting feedback around that?
Yeah, feedback is the best thing forward. Unless it's something very, very niche, like a medical patent or an AI patent or something, incredibly niche. There is no such thing as bad feedback, because it is always just going to be getting you one step closer to nailing everything. There is a general consensus in market. If you ask people to sign, what are they even called, non-disclosure forms, you probably never get replied to or spoken to again. And again, what makes the company successful is the team, is the person. A stranger is not going to steal your idea if they have no passion or no purpose behind it. So yeah, back yourself, and I will be telling as many people as possible. And that's actually another point. When you are in your early stage ideation, of course, market feedback is very, very vital. We at One Another, we launched the direct to consumer free mobile app first, which was very good because we got a lot of feedback. But looking back on it in today's raising capital market, and Sambo may agree, what's the quickest way to a customer? Which means you need to know the pants on fire problem, which means a customer will be willing to pay for. And what I'm getting at is friends and family give you false hope. Of course, your close networking are going to say, great idea, great app, we'll support you, which may give you this false sense of, oh my God, I'm onto something. So I'd very much encourage you all to get feedback from strangers, from randoms, and ask for direct constructive feedback. The only way we are going to get better is by getting constructive feedback. And please don't take it as, hurtful or harmful. I'm telling you, it's the only way to get better.
Yeah.
So just some ideas there as well.
Yeah, it's a great point, Chris. Like, I often find with the founders that we work with is some will go out, speak to 10 people, and they get rejected once, and they kind of give up or get scared. Those that push through and realize it was the 7th conversation when someone wants to invest, or the 8th conversation, someone's like, this is great, go meet someone. So I guess fighting and having that resilience, that not letting, one or two opinions, matter, because you need to go out there and chat to people and find the people that are willing to pay and willing to invest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. So, Chris, when you raised that capital, and, I know that you're in a fantastic job, that's paying you well. How did you navigate the mindset to think, I'm going to quit my job, my career, and go into building my own business and following this passion? A lot to unpack there, and very keen, and I'm sure a lot of people are.
Yeah, and you helped me through that process a lot as well, Sambo. So testament to you, as you know. But for context, I was in corporate sales and tech sales, and for anyone who knows tech sales, it's a very good lifestyle, making good money for flexible hours with a lot of great perks. So I was making good money essentially and having a good lifestyle, but I wasn't living my purpose. So again, my purpose of spreading positivity and the feelings when I was going to sell other people's tech, it wasn't making me happy. So back to what we said at the very start of this call, what makes you happy? And the ultimate key to success is essentially living your purpose and your passion and getting paid for it. So I was getting paid for it, but it wasn't my purpose and passion. So throughout that process, I started to ask my close advisors, my eldest brother being one of them, mum and dad being the others. And of course, especially mum and dad's, what were their advice? You stupid fool, stick with your high paying job. There are of that older generation where safety, money is a lot of things. So I took their advice obviously to heart, they're my parents, but with a grain of salt. And that's another important thing, is ask the questions, but it's up to you as the founder to understand what advice you pay attention to, because so many people will give you their thoughts, their opinions. Don't do that. That doesn't make sense, or that's stupid. And that's just their thoughts. So it's very important for you to let through the keeper, potentially the negative advice, or actually pay attention to the right advice. And that's essentially your job as a leader. But back to the element of my process, it was talking to my trusted advisors. It was luckily throughout my maturity and spiritual learning, I knew who I was, which was, to me, my definition of success, which you uncover when you have time to chat to yourself, is essentially I have a very much an abundance mindset, and I want time, flexibility, so I can do what I want when I want. It might sound arrogant or confident or whatever, but it's as simple as that. I don't have children yet, but I want to create a life where I can go and watch my family and take my kids to school or whatever it is, whenever I want. Second, I want to be living my purpose. I guess these are in no specific order, but spreading positivity. Third, I want the globe as my office. Travel is very, very important to me. So I want to create a life where I can travel the globe. And fourth, I need financial flexibility and financial abundance to be able to provide for myself and for my coming future and my family. So there are 4 elements which I define as success. And then I personally, how do I get all of those things with one bird? A global tech company, which allows me to empower my purpose at scale, ultimately with hopefully a sustainable salary, and the ability to work my hours. So I then saw that a global tech company was the solution to my definitions for success. So then ultimately it was a no-brainer for me. I was lying at bed at night going, why am I selling someone else's tech when I can be selling my own? So, I made that decision to quit because I wasn't happy. How did I know what bring me happiness? I sat, I pondered, I questioned myself. I spoke to mature people in my trusted circle and really wrote down that map of success. So now I can align my purpose and passion, which is obviously now my current journey, of one another. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, wow, Chris, no, incredibly insightful. And yeah, totally agree about, really understanding, I guess it goes back to the why. What's this going to help me in terms of getting to where I want to be, in terms of the life that I want to live? And being able to build your own startup is going to allow you to unlock that, which is great. So in terms of, that thinking as well, I know we spoke offline around, what's potentially tips that people might be able to do listening in order to think about that, writing down, what's a way that you might think that they can think, great, I'm ready to take this leap. What's the priority? What do I want to be doing here?
Yeah, I just call it the pros and cons list. It's pretty simple, but going on walks without technology, and this may be a month or a few month process. As we all know, these are big decisions and may take a few months. But essentially, walks with no technology, saunas with no technology, meditation with no technology, essentially alone time with yourself. Then I would highly encourage you, write out what the question is. Should I quit my job? Should I start this company? What company do I want to start? What things will I say yes to? What things will I potentially have to say no to? For example, if you may love going out for fancy dinners, as a founder on an early stage founder salary, you might have to reject that. So we'll say no to that. So write it all out, get yourself a nice, beautiful little journal, and have your pros on your left-hand side and your cons on the right-hand side. That, I don't know if I'm a simple person, but like even making business decisions, Lisa and I, our co-founder, just go, what are the pros, what are the cons, and let's just weigh it up. So yeah, pros and con list.
Good tip. I like it. And how do you feel these days, waking up in the morning, I guess, being on your own mission, like what's that feeling like? And just being honest about it. Like, I mean, imagine some days it is vulnerable and you're like, shit, what's going on? So it's not always rainbows and butterflies. How do you deal with that daily thought when you wake up?
Yeah. I can tie this in with Giles's question around, can you run us through your financial planning and how much runway you gave yourself and how you could dedicate time to your new business? So every single story and founder journey is going to be different. I was very lucky and grateful for the fact that I own a 1-bedroom property. So I had, I guess, a lot of my wealth tied up in that. And I've gone from making good income from the sales job to essentially no income for over 18 months. But my happiness has increased. Why? Because it's back to your purpose and living your purpose. And I guess being a good listener, name one rich in financial sense person in their 60s, 70s, or 80s who have said, yeah, I'm so happy that I decided to dedicate all my time to my business and money. Not one. Every person that I've spoken to who's chased money at some point in their life has essentially gone, I wish I spent more time with my family, more time with myself, more time being present than 20 hours a day growing your own company. I knew for a fact that if I launched this business, which is aligned with my purpose, financial freedom and the money will come as a byproduct, as a secondary thing. Again, back to your why. I never once and never will be running this business to chase money. 100%. We're a social enterprise, so we'll be donating 50% of our profits to charities and good causes. But I know for a fact that if I spread positivity, we have this technology that helps people's lives, saves them time, finding volunteering events, the byproduct will be income. So back to your question, Sambo, is overall, my happiness has absolutely skyrocketed. Why? Because I'm living my purpose. Obviously, life throughout that journey is a roller coaster. So that's another element. I think when people are just so caught up in living life, life is the journey and not the destination. So just think about that again. Life is the journey and not the destination. How many people say, I can't wait to buy a car. I can't wait to buy a house. I can't wait to start my company and it be earning $10 million. I can't wait for next weekend. It's like, mate, you'll spend your whole life waiting for tomorrow. We can only live in right now, which is the present moment. And the present moment has highs and lows. It's a roller coaster. So I very much encourage and I try my best when I am at a low point, I embrace my low points. I do that through gratitude journaling, through meditation, and through knowing, there's a bunch of lyrics and songs. What is it? The darkest before the sun rises, or whatever it may be. But that's just my specific journey. So I guess try to embrace the highs and lows as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. At the end of the day, it's it's just the reality of what's happening when you're building your own business, and you look what's at some of the Mark Zuckerberg's, Neil Musk, and everyone like that, and they take you on this journey of what they've been through, and it's not always just ups. There's a lot of downs as well, and that's the same with just anyone that's running a business or anyone in life in general. So, yeah, I appreciate those sentiments, mate. It makes a lot of sense. Because we've got a few minutes left, one point that we spoke about backstage was, and really trying to help people in terms of their fundraising as well, was talking about storytelling. Encapsulating that in the one sentence, what's kind of your thoughts on that, and how did that really help you through your journey and everything you're doing these days?
Yeah, storytelling is vital. And it's knowing your strengths in storytelling. So me personally, I'm not too good on emails, text messages, potentially even digital stuff. I'm very energy focused. So that's why I just always try and request our meetings be in person, because I just like the energy of being in real life. And that's where my story and my passion and sort of my vibe comes across, is when you can feel it. There are a lot of people out there who are expert copywriters or are expert, on the phone or whatever it may be. So it's sort of finding your strength and your passion and really buying into that energy. People can pick up on energy straight away. So yeah, find your energy and then hone in on it.
It's great. And being able to clearly articulate that one sentence to be able to describe it to anyone, which is really important. While we've still got you, Chris, and we've got the comments, if you've got any comments, please put them in there that you'd like Chris and I to answer along this journey. Be super. Love to help you guys out. And Chris, while we do, have a few more moments left, is there anything from your end in terms of advice and top line advice that you give people to go out there and have those conversations? What's kind of any other ending advice that you'd have for them?
Yeah, for anyone who's seen those movies, Dune, it's like a mixture of Gladiator and Star Wars. Paul, I think his name was, fear is the mind killer. Fear stops us from doing so many potential beneficial things. So I would encourage you, for anyone who has not read the book, The Obstacle is the Way. The title says it. Essentially, you go towards your fear, especially for founders who are working 9 to 5 or have an idea. It could potentially be life-changing. Your fear is that first step, or your fear is telling your parents or your family and friends, or asking for advice or for money, or speaking on a panel, or doing a webinar like this. Whatever the fear is, lean into it and do it, because I promise you, it is not as scary as you think. And as soon as you've done it once, that panel that you just sat on will lead to investment, will lead to advice, will lead to a successful company. So yeah, I guess my final piece of advice is fear is the mind killer, and head towards it.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is from a book that I always suggest everyone reads, The Magic of Thinking Big, and it's action cures fear. It's as simple as that, which is great. And just touching on that point, Chris, as well, when you're raising funding or wanting to speak to partners, often the investor comes from a contact of a contact. So we're speaking about it earlier from a stranger point of view. So if you go reach out to someone and they like it, they might go, actually go speak to someone I know over here, and they'll introduce you. And that's often where it happens. So that network effect, just really trust on. And then Chris, sorry, you want to mention something?
I was just going to say, that is a very good point. When you get a no at the end of the conversation, ask, who else should I be speaking with, do you think? One of my sales managers told me that way back in the day. And so many, as someone said, I think it was Tanya said, strangers want to help you grow. So ask the question, who else should I speak with? It's a very good point. Adam here says, what made you choose Hyper? Back in the day, I was speaking to, I believe, 2 or 3 sort of similar accelerator programs. One of my friends told me about Sam Cust personally. So I think we went and had a couple of coffees or spoke online. And honestly, I went with Hyper because I trust and connected with Sam. Another perfect example of people buying from people. I trust Sam with my life, essentially, definitely with my business. And if Sam is a good human, he's going to hire good humans. His energy is going to portray to other people within the Hyper company. Long story short is Sam, really.
I appreciate it, Chris. And that wasn't paid for, and I appreciate and share that sentiment, mate. We love working with you here, which is great. I think that's it for now, with the comments coming in, and really appreciate your time, Chris. Where can people reach you if they want to connect and learn even more from you? Where's the best place to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I have probably LinkedIn. I've deleted all my social media, but I use LinkedIn. But ultimately, I think that's quite a saturated market. Check out oneanother.io. We're a platform and a community which is all about empowering you to give back and volunteer with your community. Our tagline is do good to feel good. So if any of that inspires you, you can go to our website and see all my personal contact details there, phone number, email, or join our community. It's free, easy to sign up. Everyone is welcomed. We have virtual events all across Australia. A lot of our in-person events are here in Sydney. But I'm willing and happy to chat to anyone on this call who has more questions. I know there's a few questions on the right that we haven't had a chance to get to, so hit me up. text message, phone. I'm a sucker for old school, traditional ways of chatting. But yeah, I'm happy to help anyone.
Awesome. Chris, thanks so much for your time. For those of you that logged in on your lunch break, really appreciate it as well. Anyone that needs support as well from a hyper point of view, please feel free to get in touch with our team on Apollo, and we will get back to you. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone, and take care. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Amber.